Hello and welcome to That's Mental TV with yet again another fantastic, inspirational and hope-filled episode with Jack Turley. Welcome, Jack Turley. How you doing?
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me, Christine. I'm not bad, not bad. I had a bit of a rough morning, but got lots to talk about.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk about your rough morning and why you're having a rough morning. But first up, I want you to introduce yourself, Jack, because I could do it, but it comes much better from yourself. Who are you, Jack Turley?
So I'm a writer and a teacher, but primarily talking to you because I'm an ostomy ambassador. So that's I've got a stoma bag. I have a disease called ulcerative colitis, which is a little bit like Crohn's. Not many people seem to have heard of ulcerative colitis. Crohn's seems to be a little bit more widely known. They're quite similar diseases, and after lots of different medications and struggling with my illness over the years, I've ended up with a stoma bag. I think the only things people see in the press about stoma bags tend to be quite negative sometimes. So I'm trying to use my story, since I've had the stoma bag for a year now, as a more positive example to counter, the more sensational stories you see in the press about people hating having Crohn's colitis and a stoma bag when they're young.
And you're certainly doing that. You are making waves in the right way. You're making positive waves, and you're fast becoming an influencer, an advocate of mental health. And it was through James Crystal that we were introduced, and I was absolutely inspired by your story. I mean, we interviewed you for Radio Plus Coventry, didn't we? The health and wellbeing show yesterday. And I was absolutely inspired by your story and how you are taking life day by day and the things that you're putting in. I mean, for you, it's kind of, it literally is a day by day process, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so the problem with Crohn's and colitis is that there's no cure for them yet. And when I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, it took a real hit on my mental health. The physical health effects are really obvious. I lost about a quarter of my body mass in a few months. Some of the medications made my face swell up. My joints went really brittle. I couldn't walk for periods. That happened twice. But I think sometimes it's easy to forget the mental impacts that had. And I went from being, really happy. I just started a job I was really enjoying, teaching science. I had a book on the go that I was trying to get published. And then it kind of everything crashed once I got the diagnosis. And I realized that I wasn't just unwell and there wasn't going to be a quick fix and I'd get back to usual, that this was forever. So yeah, there is a bit of a day by day thing, but the message I try to give out is that the stoma bag is a positive thing that gets you away from the illness rather than something, ugly, and it's had a positive impact on my life.
Yeah, and it just, you are a remarkable young man, and you are a young man. Here you are starting out in life. You've graduated from university, you know what you want to do. You want to be a teacher, you are a teacher, and then you get diagnosed with this. And it's just, I can't imagine what you would have gone through the process. And but what is remarkable and inspiring to me is how you pulled yourself out of it, and you still are doing that. Before we hit record, you said you're having a bit of a down day, and that's so real and raw. And we need more of this, don't we? We need people to be more real and say, you know what, I'm actually having a down day today, and for society to go, that's okay, let's put our arms around you and help you. So tell us a little bit about your journey and the process, and where you are now.
So back in 2018, I got my diagnosis. I was in and out of hospital 4 times in 2019, up to a couple of weeks at a time. And during that time, it was very hard to work. Like I said, I couldn't walk with the side effects of some of the medication at times. My face was completely huge. I remember going in to teach when my face hadn't quite deflated as I was coming off the steroid medication. And my pupil saying to me, "Oh, sir," trying to be nice, so your face looks a little bit less inflated this week. And then eventually, last summer, I had the surgery to fit the stoma bag. Basically, the doctors tried a full course of medications, and none of them worked for me. So I had the stoma bag fitted, and I'm on no medications at all now, which for me is amazing. And for my mental health, that's had a huge positive impact. There's obviously a big adjustment to not having a large intestine, never going to the toilet quite in the same way that I used to. Instead, it's a bag that just fills up on my stomach, and I have to deal with that. I've had a few funny instances where I tried camping for the first time, and the bag exploded in my sleep.
Oh.
So there's all kind of new challenges to face, but I had a choice to make this year, and I've got a surgery in 2 weeks' time to make the stoma permanent. It was what my doctor advised was the best for my disease. And so I've started shielding this morning. Today I should be back at school. I should be meeting my new classes, but instead I have to shield for the next 2 weeks. Then I'll be in hospital for a week or two, and then shielding again for a little while afterwards. So been a little bit down this morning, but I've been writing too, which is always my go-to when I'm feeling a bit down.
Yeah, and we were discussing what your go-to is, and you said you love writing. In fact, you're aspiring to be a writer, aren't you, long term? And
Yeah.
your writing is absolutely your real gift there, that you have, and
Thanks.
talent in your writing. What else do you do aside from writing to balance the old mental health? Well, it's not old, but you know what I mean.
Well, when I'm physically capable, I love doing some kind of exercise. But at the sort of the heights of the disease, sometimes that hasn't been possible. So I will not just, I talk about writing articles or writing my book. There were days where, especially in hospital, I didn't have the energy to watch anything because I couldn't really follow the story. I couldn't, I didn't have the energy to, write an article. But what I might do is think about a story for my character. So I felt pretty trapped in hospital, especially last summer. It was boiling, and I was just in a hospital bed with a little fan next to me. And I was wishing I was outside, doing all the things you'd like to be doing in the summer. And I got Google Maps out, or Google Earth, kind of street view, and I started plotting different kind of scenarios for some of my characters in my book by taking myself through these, the street view.
Wow.
And even when I physically couldn't go anywhere, I needed help to walk from my hospital bed to the toilet at this stage. With my character, I was in Brazil, I was in Russia, I was in the streets of London, and that was quite an escape for me.
Yeah. So you basically used your imagination and creativity to help you through and guide you through the times of, that you needed to. And that has manifested in your writing. So tell us a little bit more about your writing, because you've really underplayed that, Jack.
So I've written a novel, which I'm currently trying to find an agent or a small publisher for, unsuccessfully so far. And then I also, once I'd finished that, I wrote a short series called Around the World in 80 Dumps a Day, which is a little bit of a play on words of basically part of ulcerative colitis is you're always running to the toilet. And so I just wrote about a few of the funny situations that I got into when I was ill, because as much as it was pretty horrible at the time, looking back on it, there were some really comical scenarios. There was the camping one, there's especially ones teaching and trying not to let your students notice what's wrong with you. And so I was just writing about that and trying to give a bit of through comedy, through a story, a positive outlook on, still keeping active, doing all the things you want to do with a stoma bag, with a disease that, it's not the end of your life. It's just a big change in it.
Yeah, and you talk about having a stoma bag applied as a positive good thing. Tell us a bit about that, because there might be somebody watching right now going, how can you look at that positively? Tell us why.
I 100% felt the same when I was diagnosed. I was really hoping I would find a medication that would put me into remission and would mean I never had to have the surgery. I looked at the stats, and about 45 to 70% of people diagnosed with colitis or Crohn's end up having some kind of surgery. And I was praying that I could be one of those people that don't need to have the op. And then over time, it'd been, kind of a year of trying different medications and none of them working. I realized that if I left it any longer, I'd probably regret the time lost not having the surgery rather than regret having the bag itself. And once I had it, I kind of wish I'd had it sooner. I was offered it about 6 months before I did have it, and I chose to go on a trial medication instead because it felt so final. But in fact, you just, if you've got a severe case of it and the doctors are suggesting it, they know what's best for their patients. You read a lot of misinformation online. There's lots of people that say, this vitamin or that diet change is going to cure your disease. But the reality is, if someone had cancer, you wouldn't say, here's this aloe vera rub, that's going to fix everything. And it was a matter of my disease seriously enough to say, yeah, I need a surgery to fix this. And I think it's that, it's the same with physical and mental health problems. Sometimes you need to just admit to yourself how serious it is before you get the right treatment.
And this is, medicine has its place, right? Medicine's has its place, and it is there to help us, and it does help us. It helps the human race in terms of mental health. So that it's obviously had a really good and positive impact on your mental health. And maybe that 6 months of trying meds was preparing you subconsciously, who knows,
Essentially, yeah.
to have this procedure, which is going to become permanent in a couple of weeks. So in terms of mental health, what do you do on a daily basis that balances things out for you?
So I'd say one thing is just trying to do some kind of exercise every day. So even when I was in hospital, as soon as my joints allowed it, I was doing laps of the hospital. There was another guy in a similar scenario to me, and we'd just walk around. Once I was able to, I'd go up and down the hospital stairs. And I remember the first time that I was able to go outside again was just amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it's that kind of keeping moving, because once you lie around for too long, you start to wallow in the dark thoughts. While you're active, you're not thinking, you're doing, and you're making the positives happen. Get back to fitness, full fitness, whether that's in terms of your mental or your physical health.
Yeah, and you know what? Moving around actually changes the chemicals in your body, doesn't it? And it changes your physiology as well. So get moving. And what about emotionally? And you talked about physically, but what do you do emotionally to help with your mental health?
And especially for guys, we're not very good at talking about it very often. And if you look online, you'd think that a lot more women, say, had mental health problems and had stoma or issues with Crohn's and colitis than men, but it's not. It's just that a lot more women are good at talking about it. Whereas I think men tend to bottle these things up a little bit, feel a bit of a shame related to mental health stigma. And so it's just a case of admitting to people, yeah, I've been struggling. I might post the picture where I've just done my first run since the op and I'm feeling great. But what you don't see is that other side where you wish that you've never had the disease. And I think sort of I did was friends, and talk about it. That's maybe when I turn to the writing to just clear my own thoughts.
And you've got a fantastic community of people, a small army that are surrounding you with love, support, and encouragement, haven't you? As well as the That's Mental community. So finally, if you could leave our leave the show today with some positive kind of tips or advice or encouragement, what would it be, Jack Turley?
I think it would be, if you're struggling, don't brush your issues under the carpet. Don't just expect them to go away. Take them seriously. It's a bit like I said with, you know, there's a doctor that can help you. Take their advice seriously and give it a go before you dismiss it.
Yeah.
Because I kind of always thought surgery was the worst thing that I could end up doing, and in fact, it was what gave me my life back.
Wow.
So in terms of mental health, if you're having a mental health problem, seriously get professional advice and chance before you go reading everything on the internet when there's so many different messages out there.
Fantastic. So go and get some professional advice, speak to those around you, and just get the ball rolling. Thank you so much, Jack, for joining us. We'd like to invite you on the show again in the future. Tell us how you're doing and how things are going. And yeah, you've been watching That's Mental TV with me, Christine Charles, and Jack Turley in the house. Jack, if there's anybody watching going, I need to follow this guy, he's inspirational, which you are, how do they find you?
So I've got a website, it's jturleywriting.co.uk, or on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, JETurley So yeah, love a follow.
There you go. Jack Turley in the house, and this is That's Mental. See you next time.